Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. The webinar today is Web Conversion Optimization, How to Attract, Engage, and Qualify B2B Buyers. Our webinar is co-hosted by Guy Alif, CEO of Intellimize, Renee Irian, Principal Analyst at Forrester, and Rainey Salahi, Principal Analyst at Forrester. During the webinar, please feel free to submit your questions by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen or enter those questions directly into the chat. Don't be shy. I will now turn it over to Rainey to start things off. Rainey?
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to today's session on web conversion optimization. I see some familiar audience members, so I will extend a warm hello to you that I see in the attendee window. So thank you for joining. We're excited to be here today. We are going to be discussing how to attract, engage, and qualify B2B buyers on your website through the framework of web conversion optimization, or WCO as we will refer to throughout the deck, which is the process of increasing the conversion of website visitors from unknown to known by creating environments that attract, engage, and qualify targeted visitors while providing a unified experience across devices and channels. So Cinderella is proof that a new pair of shoes can change your life. The same can be said for creating our digital and online experiences with the buyer's journey in mind. B2B marketers can leverage an optimized website to deliver an audience-centric and interconnected buying experience, providing multiple paths to connect and convert those prospective buyers to drive your repeat purchases. All B2B buyers are, in fact, B2C consumers. So user expectations of websites and those meaningful online experiences has changed as technology has evolved and increased data has become more readily available. Today, we will be looking at the impact of digital interactions in the B2B buyer's journey and the website's role in activating that journey. You'll walk away with an understanding of the patterns digital marketers must follow for the next evolution of their web conversion optimization process to design those experiences that align with visitor expectations and really increase those conversion rates. So let's take a moment to talk about the buyer's journey, the role of digital within the organization, and how that influences your web strategy.
Great, thanks, Rainey. If we go back to this idea of the glass slippers, and we might have to think back a bit, but if we recall that Prince and Cinderella, he really went through much trial and error trying to match those slippers to every maiden in the kingdom before he found it was designed specifically for Cinderella. And then success, he found his princess. So what is sold, how it's purchased, and who is active in the decision process directly impacts the buyer's needs and ultimately how you design a successful experience for them on your website. Now, consider the differences from persona needs to buying group context, as well as the length of the decision-making process for the products shown before you. All of these factors impact how your site can best provide value to your buyers. It will help you create their glass slipper. However, there is really something that every buying scenario now has in common. And it's the themes around the new buyer's journey. Our buyers have become more enabled, and they can find what they want when they want it on their own. Digital delivery has a lot to do with this enablement. Now, if it's not your message, it might be your competitors. And because of the self-service, content-rich, on-demand nature of this new buying journey, it's also nonlinear. As marketers, everything we do has to support these 4 elements to make sure we're reaching our buyers the way they want to and can be reached. And really, the opportunity is now to harness the value of your website. And here's why. We know from our recent research that buyers are participating in at least a dozen meaningful interactions during their journey to complete a purchase. And that study also found that the majority, or 67% of buyers, prefer using websites to research their buying decisions. Now, here's the important piece. Not that it all isn't important, but the critical factor here is that the provider's website was ranked by B2B buyers as one of the most impactful self-guided interactions by buyers. In other words, the buyer is empowered and your organization's website is a critical destination in this journey. Now, B2B buyers are using websites and web properties in meaningful ways throughout their decision-making process. From that same recent B2B buying study, if we look at some of the most meaningful on-site as well as to-site interactions, buyers value high-value content. And when I say by high-value content, I mean free trials, virtual events, demos, videos, as well as interacting with peers and subject matter experts. Understanding which interactions are most impactful in addressing the needs of your buying groups helps inform how to optimize your website throughout the buying process, whether it's in the education, solution, or selection phase. Now, three key factors are driving both the heightened buyer expectations of a website experience. The first is around user expectations, which have evolved from simple brochureware type websites to a more personalized experience that adapts based on intent, profile data, as well as maybe past activity. Now, technology has evolved to both enable and activate these experiences. We now have increasingly sophisticated capabilities for both data analysis as well as orchestration of the digital experience. And then finally, data availability enables these more personalized and relevant buyer experiences. Now, fortunately, these factors also fuel the organization's ability to deliver on these expectations. So speaking of data availability, Guy, you have some really amazing recent relevant insights to share regarding web conversion.
Happy to share them, Renee. Thank you. I really liked this evergreen framework and how it puts websites into perspective in the marketing funnel. And I'd like to share some context about what we're seeing in market right now to help frame web conversion optimization today. We're seeing buyer behavior changing dramatically as the world around us changes rapidly. When we looked across all of Intellimize's B2B customers, traffic spiked as soon as the lockdowns began. For our discussion, we're comparing everything to the first half of March because most of the lockdowns began in mid-March. Traffic was up 40% in the first 2 weeks of lockdown. Perhaps our prospects had more time to explore our offerings now that we're all at home more. Now, typically when traffic goes up, you get less qualified traffic and conversion rates go down, but not right now, not for B2B. Conversion rates also went up 25% in the first 2 weeks of lockdown. Wow. The effect of both has since muted, but the overall impact is still quite positive for B2B sellers. Right now, conversion rates are up 15% and traffic is up 6% compared to the first half of March. Now that's across all of our B2B customers. When we look across all of our customers across all industries, traffic is up and continues to rise rapidly, while conversion rates are down and have leveled off somewhat. Now, with that as context, let's talk about the web conversion optimization framework that'll help us navigate this difficult time. I'll turn it over to Rainey to talk about WCO now.
Thanks, Guy. WCO really begins the moment an anonymous visitor lands on your website. And the process continues as the visitor explores further to fill their information gaps. Credibility is established, information is exchanged, and the visitor converts to known. Web conversion optimization goals should be defined based on the desired action for the visitor to take, and is not always a form fill. The action on the site should be considered in the context of the overall sequence of interactions and provide input into targeting and tailoring of messaging in later visits or other tactics. The modern marketer is creating an iterative journey as websites present thousands of possible combinations of variables and visitor interaction paths while learning more about their buyers, their needs, and the most impactful on-site interactions with each visit. This continuous feedback loop requires an iterative approach to WCO and the capabilities to take action on the insights from test scenarios and web analytics. So with an understanding of that, let's take a moment and conduct a poll. Think of a recent time when you abandoned a website. What was the primary reason that you left the site? Were you finding it difficult to use, potentially slow to load, or other technical issues? Could not find what you needed, or felt like you were in the wrong location based on where you clicked from, or could not figure out what to do next? This is all meant to be interactive today, and we're looking forward to seeing your results in a few moments. Okay, so your votes are in. So thank you for indulging me as we wanted to make sure that today was interactive, but you could not find what you needed or felt like you were in the wrong place. So that really helps us to go to this very first step that we're going to discuss, which is the attract phase. So when we think about the three phases, as we'll go through them, attract, engage, and qualify, you'll recognize immediately why it's so important to take into these considerations. So the attract phase of the web conversion optimization framework is intended to effectively capture and direct the buyer's attention. So in that poll, if you are conducting all of these activities to bring traffic to your website through search engine optimization, your paid advertising strategy, third-party advertising, you're spending money, you're investing in marketing dollars externally to bring in this traffic, it's important that when they get to your website that you are in fact capturing their intention and confirming that this is where they should to be. So in addition to that on-site experience, we have to consider the information gaps that we must also fill as they progress on their journey to becoming one of your customers. So are you creating that experience that maps to how buyers discover, research, and consume online information to determine how and when to leverage different channels? The attract phase addresses the website's preparedness to receive and engage visitors from multiple channels, as I mentioned, and provide the most relevant paths through the website. The attract phase components are focused on capturing and directing the attention of the visitor while ensuring a positive user experience. Visual language of the website should appeal to the target audience with call outs and calls to action, not only prominent and clear, but aligned to their buyer needs to validate their entry and create a path through the website. So going a little bit deeper into each of these four areas, when a visitor lands on a website, he or she immediately responds to its visuals, the imagery, the color palette, site design, brand identity. If they don't resonate, the visitor will likely leave the site. The primary benefit of appealing visuals is helping the website reinforce your organization's brand and meet those visitor expectations. If the visitor expectations are met with appealing visuals, then he or she moves on to reading the callouts or headlines that are most prominent, concise, and readable content that connects to those visitor needs. So this really addresses the polling question we just asked. The visitor then decides where to go next on the website. Calls to action take form of buttons, banners, links that all validate the visitor's entry to the website. They must be clear and aligned to the visitor needs and must encourage the visitor to engage. Websites with high usability provide a unified experience across visuals, callouts, and calls to action. If the site is not easy to use, visitors are unwilling to engage. So let's go into a few examples that really help illustrate these 4 components of attract.
Thanks, Rainey. The overall framework resonates a lot. Before we go further, I want to share, someone asked the question, hey, will we get a recording of this session? The answer is yes. We will post a recording of this, barring any recording snafus, and please keep the questions coming. So back to the framework. The visuals, including imagery, layout, and ordering of content, as well as brand identity used on websites, are a big part of attracting an audience. Typically, you don't have a long time to engage a visitor, and you want to capture their attention immediately. You want to place engaging words and images above the fold to drive the actions you seek or to encourage more engagement on the site. Here are a couple of approaches that Drift developed for their highest traffic landing page. Both of these screenshots are of the same page, but with very different visuals. Both help attract the visitor's attention. Which set of visuals is better? The answer is that it depends. While experienced marketers like those at Drift can come up with great ideas like these, no one really knows what will be the right answer for your visitors. The way to know is with data, which you gather with experimentation. The answer will almost certainly be different for each unique visitor and change over time, making web conversion optimization that much more interesting of a challenge. On the next slide, we'll see that as you attract visitors to engage with and stay on your site, visuals are complemented by prominent callouts. Callouts should align with your visitors' needs, connect with them, and be prominent, concise, and readable. This example, also from Drift, starts with a prominent, concise statement that draws visitors in and is supported by social proof that aligns with their needs. The goal is to help the visitor feel alignment so they engage and take the next step through, as we'll see on the next slide, a call to action, or CTA. Calls to action guide visitors to the action you want them to take next as you move them through the buyer journey of education, solution, and selection. To be effective, CTAs should validate to the visitor why they're on the page that they're seeing by aligning with their immediate needs. Good CTAs are super clear about what to do next. In this example, a B2B marketer could try swapping out a more generic get started CTA for a more specific and descriptive start my risk-free trial CTA with the goal of better connecting with visitors' needs. There's usually not one correct answer that attracts all of your visitors, so you should test and experiment to learn which CTAs are better for which buyers. On the next slide, we can see that finally, to attract well, you should eliminate barriers to engagement. The site simply should be intuitive to use, perform well, and be tailored to the device your visitor is using in that moment. On performing well, it's a little tricky to show page speed as an example, but we all know this is one of the top reasons visitors bounce from a website. We even saw a quarter of the people who voted in the poll earlier name this. We've all been spoiled by near instantaneous website responses that feel pretty frustrating when we have to wait, even for 5 seconds. On screen is an example of another aspect of usability, namely tailoring the experience for different devices. Tiger Chef is a B2B e-commerce site for commercial kitchens, and they used a lot more space to present more on desktop on the image to the left. They offer more information and more controls right in line. In the mobile image on the right, they strip down the experience to the essentials, showing visitors just the most important information and controls in the default view. Visitors can reach those other elements on the site that are shown by default on the desktop, but on mobile, visitors get to that extra content through well-designed icons that lead the way. What can focusing on the attract phase of web conversion optimization do for you, and how should you measure it? Well, the attract phase can do a lot. In this phase, you're looking to engage visitors arriving on your site to maximize the impact of the traffic you worked so hard to get. We're aligned with Rainey and Renee in suggesting that you evaluate your success in the attract phase by looking at how much traffic you get and how much of that traffic you're able to retain on your site so that you can engage them. One of our customers, Unilever's Dermalogica division, really focused on the attract phase of WCO and generated 100% lift in the conversions they wanted. In their case, that was subscription purchases instead of one-time purchases. So once you've attracted a visitor to your site, you now have the privilege of engaging them. How can you do that best? Let me turn it over to Renee to walk us through the engage phase of the WCO framework.
Thanks so much, Guy. These are really great examples of applying the principles of attract and seeing measurable results. I love it. So as we go to talk about engage, I can't help but think about dating. So dating is something that some of you might be doing now, but we've probably all done it in the past if you aren't currently active in the process. But if you think about the objective when you're dating, you're really filling information gaps. You're trying to decide if that individual meets your needs. And the interactions that you have are intended to build trust. Now, similarly, the engage pillar in WCO focuses on supporting visitors as they explore your website to fill in information gaps. The objective of this phase is to build that credibility and trust among properly targeted visitors as they progress through their discovery and learning process. And this is to encourage site exploration, interaction with your site, as well as hopefully repeat visits that then eventually facilitate the qualify phase. Now, buyer expectations are very high for relevance and responsiveness, especially as visitors decide whether to invest and spend precious time on site or to take action or maybe even provide information for you to contact them. So with Engage, we have these instruments to create the ideal symphony to engage visitors. Delivering intuitive experiences means understanding audience needs. Then aligning your website's navigation, content, personalization, and connections around those needs. Now, one of the top responses in the poll was you couldn't find what you needed, and navigation can help answer that. But it must be audience-centric and aligned to those buyers' needs, not how you want to sell as an organization. So think about what problems are your buyers trying to solve? And what solutions does your organization provide for those problems? Now, once they click through from the navigation to content, the website must have the content that the audience finds most impactful during their buying process and applicable to the stage that they're in. So whether they're in the education, solution, or selection phases, they're going to have different needs within those phases. And then the content ideally is created across different mediums, whether it's text or video, or maybe even interactive content that aligns to their preferences. Ideally, the experience is also personalized. Now, Rainey mentioned earlier that we're all B2C consumers, and B2B buyers are beginning to expect these personalized experiences as a crossover from what we've all become accustomed to in our B2C digital interactions. Personalization supports the delivery of the right message to the right audience at the right time. Ultimately, an optimized website supports multiple mechanisms through which a visitor can connect and interact with your organization, as well as with peers through social channels, communities, and content optimized for sharing. Now, we love examples, and it always helps to see these concepts applied in real-world scenarios. So I'm going to turn it back to Guy to share some examples.
Thanks, Renee. That framework explanation makes a lot of sense. Now, as you in the audience seek to engage website visitors that you successfully attracted, you want to both guide them and help them find what they seek with clear, usable navigation. The more intuitive and audience-centric the navigation, the better. In this example, from Unilever's Dermalogica division, they took a standard nav bar on the top and tried a new version down below. Not only did they simplify the nav bar, they also anticipated that many visitors will want to jump directly into a product category to browse the available products. They embedded a visual listing of categories within the primary site navigation. They watched and listened their site behaviors visitor and updated the navigation based on that insight. On the next slide, you'll see that once you've anticipated the buyer's path through the site, you should anticipate the content that will engage them and help move them through the funnel. Create content that speaks to their needs at the appropriate level of detail for their stage in the funnel. Here's an example from Medallia where they tried 2 different approaches to content on a classic B2B form fill-out page. The top version is light and high level. The bottom version offers quite a bit more detail within an expanded block of text. Which approach works better? Common wisdom would suggest the more concise version up top, but we don't find that to always be the case. The reality is that the best version to show depends on where a visitor is in the funnel when they visit the page, and therefore what they need to engage with in that moment. We suggest testing both approaches to learn which works better. On the next slide, we'll talk about personalization. Intellimize thinks about personalization as the best approach to optimize all of these examples, the ones we'll talk to today, throughout the entire web conversion optimization framework. Within the Forrester framework itself, personalization is defined as digital marketers individualizing their website experiences for different visitors based on data. We believe personalization is about meeting each unique buyer where they are in their journey with you in that moment. And in doing so, you can communicate to a buyer that you can address their specific challenges. It's like saying, I understand you, which is foundational to driving engagement and moving them through the funnel. This example from LaserAway uses location data to personalize a headline. You could instead use Marketo or Salesforce data to speak differently to a visitor based on what stage of the funnel they're in. Alternatively, you could use reverse IP lookup data to de-anonymize a new visitor and understand what company they're with and discover the associated firmographics. And with that knowledge, you can then show case studies from their industry. Or in the logo farm on their site, you could sprinkle in visitors' competitors as social proof and to confirm that others have solved similar problems with your solution. You can use personalization to engage visitors throughout the funnel. On the next slide, we'll see, as you personalize, it's ideal if you can promote sharing and encourage the buyer to connect with their peers. We all know that many B2B purchases involve comparing notes with other experienced B2B marketers. Here's an example from Perkville, a B2B SaaS company directly driving referrals to others and sharing on social networks. This particular example also embodies some of the other principles we spoke about earlier, as they tried 4 additional calls to action in a usable, mobile-friendly design. So what can you achieve if you focus on engagement, and how should you measure success? Well, in the engage phase, you're looking to maximize the progress of buyers through the funnel, and tracking the type and frequency of their engagement with your website and other channels can be a useful proxy for where they are in the funnel. As an example, Drift's marketing team is accountable for driving leads to sales at the bottom of their marketing funnel, and they focused on engaging prospects throughout. They personalized and optimized their highest traffic pages and were able to drive an impressive 322% more leads to sales compared to their base unpersonalized website. Now, taking a step back, now that you've engaged your visitors, you want to qualify them. I'll turn it back to Rainey to walk through the qualification phase of the web conversion optimization framework.
Thanks, Guy. And I'm glad you had personalization right there. We've got a lot of questions in our Q&A, and we can answer some of that further live when we get to the end. And I have tried to type a few of those answers in as we're going to keep everybody engaged. No pun intended. Okay, so to the qualify phase. The qualify phase consists of rationalizing, justifying, and confirming the visitor's fit with the offering, and then routing to that appropriate conversion path. So let's deep dive into each of these 3. So visitors must connect with the offering and rationalize that it fits their needs. Therefore, the offering must be differentiated from your competitors, including your own organization's other products. There must be paths identified with late-stage content, such as data sheets and case studies that support the decision process. Many times we think of data sheets and case studies for the early on education phases, and that is also correct. But now we're starting to get into that justification piece. Visitors are also looking to confirm the fit with the offering. So they're looking for demos, trials, calculators, or ROI tools to be motivated to convert. One critical detail many B2B marketers miss is that the visitor may not be the buyer. So consider the content and information the visitor needs to take this information and sell internally to their decision makers. Also, once a profile fit is confirmed and the visitor has exhibited the requisite behavior patterns for you, the website must have clear paths to conversion, such as signing up for their trial, filling out a contact form. Consistency across the experience is necessary for the visitor to confirm your offering fit for their organization and convert. So let's look at a couple more examples of that.
Rainey, thank you. I'd like to focus, I like the focus on driving to conversions in the qualify phase. In this phase, it's important to present offers that are aligned with buyers' needs and which support their path to making a purchase decision. In this example from Tableau, there are two potential offers. One offer is to try out the solution for free, while the other potential offer is to buy the solution. In these different treatments, one presents an option, where the other has been pre-selected based on an understanding of needs. This personalization eliminates a decision to be made and streamlines the highest probability path for that individual visitor. Additionally, some B2B companies do predictive lead scoring or simple lead scoring based on firmographics like employee count. These companies then use that lead scoring to decide if they want to guide their prospects to speak to sales, which could be the buy option, or to go to self-serve, which could be the free trial option. They're able to shape and support the buyer's decision path appropriately. To help the buyer justify their own decision, increase commitment, and become more fully qualified, it helps to talk ROI and benefits, confirm offer fit, and help the buyer sell internally to their organization. In this example, a B2B pricing page helps the buyer select from the right packages available to them from among a clear set of choices. This page also provides social proof to highlight the benefits and enable the buyer to sell internally within their own organization. The last element of Qualify that Rainey touched on was the paths to conversion. Too often, there's a single journey for all visitors to follow, but it doesn't have to be that way, and it probably shouldn't be that way. In this example, we see Drift has provided an option to create a free account through a simple one-field form, as well as an option to engage with a chatbot who can walk a prospect through the trial sign-up process. The visitor can choose whichever path feels better for them. As we spoke about on the offer alignment page, Drift could also shape the path to conversion based on what they know about a visitor. For example, showing a chatbot that pushes a sales conversation to an enterprise prospect and a different chatbot that pushes self-serve to an SMB prospect. Ideally, you should enable multiple paths to conversion, personalizing the right journey and conversion event for each unique visitor. Now, what should you measure in the qualify phase, and what can be achieved if you're successful? Well, typically, the qualify phase of the web conversion optimization framework, in that phase, form submissions are the most important thing to measure because they directly translate into leads for sales. Often, additional key metrics include interactions with chat, new content added, qualification scores. As an example of the impact this approach can have, Bonusly was able to drive 67% more product demo requests and new trials, both meaningful qualification indicators for their business, by pursuing an aggressive web conversion optimization initiative. Let me turn it back to Renee for our next poll of the audience.
Okay, our second and final poll asks, in which area does your organization struggle the most in optimizing your website? Is it creating enough content, aligning points of view about what to test, coding up ideas and even bringing them to life, proving the positive impact of your WCO work, or is it in dedicating enough resources to WCO to be effective? So we'll give you a moment to get your responses in. Okay, it's a close call, but at the top is dedicating enough resources for WCO to be effective, and closely following that is creating enough content. So these are similar, constraints or opportunities, if you look at them that way, that we often encounter with our clients as they optimize their website. And sort of the next thing I'd like to share is really helping you understand what needs to change. And this will help you address some of the areas of struggle. So if we think about websites, they're really complex entities with multiple components that must interact smoothly to be effective. And it helps if you and your organization collectively understand the interconnectedness of these components, from design to content to technology. It's critical to determine the nature and level of changes needed for the website, and really to create a successful optimization plan. Now, remember that optimizing your website should be an evolution and not necessarily a revolution. And this will help you, get some of those resources aligned to really help make WCO effective. So I have 3 tips that I wanted to share quickly to help you manage the change and move forward with your WCO efforts. The first is really to align your stakeholders and benchmark your site. You need to know who needs to be along for the journey within your organization, both within your team and cross-functionally, as well as where you stand now, so that you can understand how you're progressing quantitatively. You also want to assess the opportunities based on your persona needs, and then prioritize these opportunities in conjunction with the ability to impact conversions. And then finally, I hope many of you are leveraging some type of Agile approach, and you can activate through Agile and cultivate a culture of testing and learning within your organization if you don't already have one. So whether the changes are on the delivery, orchestration, or maybe analytics or data layers, really highlights the importance of key technology categories that enable optimization opportunities. So for those of us that have been in marketing for a while, what was really wishful thinking for many B2B marketers a decade ago is now a reality. We're talking about things like dynamic and personalized content delivery, automated lead scoring, and multi-touch campaigning. These capabilities are really driven by 3 WCO-related technology categories within a typical digital platform, and that's web content management, marketing automation, and web analytics. Now, I'm not going to necessarily deep dive into specific technologies. Rather, I just wanted to highlight the core technology groups and types of capabilities that are key to web conversion optimization. Implementing and properly integrating these series of technologies not only provides a unified view of all the leads, but it also allows your website to become a more effective component of integrated campaigns, enabling dynamic processes that would be impossible to achieve manually throughout the buyer's journey. So, Guy, how does the approach with these dynamic processes such as testing and personalization intersect with our topic of today around web conversion optimization?
It's a great question, Renee. Thank you very much for asking and teeing it up. We think personalization and experimentation are at the core of most WCO strategies' web content management component. And there are many approaches to personalization and experimentation, so it's helpful to compare them side by side. Starting in the lower left, A/B testing is probably familiar to most of us. We set up a 50-50 traffic split between our existing website and a new idea. And when we see a difference in performance, we bake the winner into our website. This is great because it's data-driven marketing, but it's difficult because we're picking a single experience to show everyone forever. Okay, you could do one step better and test multiple elements on the page at the same time with multivariate testing. This is great because you have a better global winner, but it's still the same experience for every visitor forever. Most of us marketers then say, you know what, we don't want to treat everyone the same. And we turn to rules-based personalization, where we define if this, then that rules. We might say new visitors see a pitch for our products and existing customers see our latest product release. This is better because we're not treating everyone the same, but it's still the same answer forever. And we as marketers, we tend to top out at a few tens of rules because we have to create and maintain every single one of them. The next logical step up is to personalize for each individual visitor. This takes rules-based personalization to its theoretical limit with a segment size of 1. It's kind of hard to do manually, but now everybody gets their own experience, but it's still an experience forever. The final step is dynamic personalization, which personalizes for each unique visitor in the moment, automatically adjusting to changes in visitor behavior over time. As you change your marketing efforts and attract different visitors who behave differently on your website will automatically adjust to each unique individual when you use dynamic personalization. And stepping up this path of WCO approaches improves both the quality of the experience for your site visitors and the conversion rate for you. And it turns out that theory is something we're seeing in practical reality in the data right now. Remember when I shared at the beginning of the presentation that overall conversion rates are up for B2B, but down when we look across industries? You can see that overall conversion rate decline across industries on this slide as the yellow line in the middle. We're then seeing the value of the WCO framework live in market now as the world is changing around us. How? What we're seeing is that existing messaging and the base websites we all have are underperforming the average, the yellow line, substantially since the start of quarantine. That base web experience is the light green line at the bottom of the page for base websites. When we look at those same websites, at the portion of traffic that's dynamically personalized and automatically adjusted to changes in visitor behavior, the dip is 55 to 78% better. That's the dark green line at the top. The change in buyer behavior is rapid and making a lot of existing messaging experiences and content not nearly as effective as they had been just a few weeks ago. The signal we took from this data is that we as marketers should adjust our digital engagement with prospects to mirror their rapidly changing behavior. And web conversion optimization is an ideal framework from which to make those adjustments. I'm going to turn it back over to Rainey to bring us home.
Thanks, Guy. So I think as we start to wrap up and look through these 3 stages, we want to cover a couple of key points. B2B buyers' expectations for a meaningful online experience has changed. By using the WCO framework to improve your website experience through attract, engage, and qualify principles to make recommended changes to understand who your buyers are and how to speak in their language. Leverage technology to test, learn, and iterate based on insights into what influences buyers' behavior and deliver meaningful interactions. We have a lot of questions that have come up. We'd like to take a moment to be able to answer those live, and a few of those have been answered within chat as well. This deck will be sent out to all attendees following, and there are some great tools in there as Guy was going through the examples of attract, engage, and qualify of some of the ways that you can look to test and measure. And so looking at each of those slides are also a great key takeaway. So with that, we will start to open it up with questions.
Thank you, everybody, for the questions you asked. There are some great ones in here. Let's start with this one. How does SEO get impacted by personalization if content is dynamically replaced? And I think Google's search engine does not like it. I have a point of view. Rainey or Renee, do you want to chime in first?
Yeah, go ahead, Guy. I'd love to hear what you say, and then we can add on to it.
Happy to. The answer is it can work just fine. So Google, as you know, is super opaque about how their search engine rankings work. So there's very little data shared externally. A few years ago, they did share, it's fine for you to personalize and do A/B testing. What you can't do is treat the Google bot differently, because we, Google, are going to show up at your site and we'll self-declare. We'll say we're the Google bot. Then they'll show up another time and not tell you who they are. They'll just appear like a random visitor. And if they consistently see different things, they'll think, you're trying to fool the Google bot. So don't do that. Treat the Google bot just like any other visitor. 1. 2, as you're personalizing, if there are a bunch of keywords you care about, just make sure they're still there on the page, right? You could use your key terms in, now I'm going to make up an example, value messaging and innovation messaging and speed messaging, right? You can talk about all 3 of those things while keeping your keywords on the page. And so just make sure as you're coming up with personalization ideas, you don't throw away the important messages and words that you've been trying to optimize for. Rainey, Renee, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think you answered that that very well. I would also say that I don't think that there are contradictions in looking at your keyword universe and running testing in impacting your SEO. So you are likely in a particular industry finding a particular solution with specific audience needs, and although the personas within your audience may differ, you have a certain universe of problems that you're trying to solve and relevant keywords. And so I think by looking at it that way, that might help you think about that that these 2 concepts do not contradict one another.
Great insight. Resonates a bunch.
We have a couple of questions on landing pages, and I thought I would take half of that, and maybe you could answer the second half, Guy. There's 2 from Jeff Nordine and Quentin. So I might not get to all of it, but I think between the 2 of us, we could do it. I think when we're looking at those 3 stages of attract, engage, and qualify, when thinking through landing pages, there's still a couple of core similarities, and so we really want to be looking at that very clear, meaningful value proposition statement and making sure that they're participating in a content experience that resonates with them. So it's really talking to that attract stage. We need to map that offer and visitor path, and so there's a variety of inbound and outbound tactics that we're looking to drive to those landing pages. And so that's where you want to ensure that meaningful value prop is there to, in fact, get them to engage with that content. And then we're looking back at mapping the offer and the visitor path. And so that has the in-depth content piece and some of the personalization pieces. Personalization, I'll let Guy speak to. There are tools to do that, but it also goes back to some of the points that Renee was bringing up and really thinking through the personas and the audience-centric messaging. It has to resonate with them. Then making sure to have that very clear CTA, and it should be consistent with whatever the interaction was to, in fact, drive that visit. And you are always looking to minimize friction. And so that really, again, goes to the usability aspect and then tailoring that experience. So it's got to resonate with that person through attract. It has to be able to create that engagement. And then you have to establish trust within that content to, in fact, qualify. So depending on the intent of that offer and bringing them to that page, you want to think through those steps. Guy, maybe on some of this, there was a question in relating to how creative ways that a landing page could be personalized. Could you potentially address that?
Happy to. Quentin asked, hey, what other data can you get when somebody shows up at a site besides their IP address? Simply because somebody requested your web page, you can use their IP address to know where are they, city, state, country. You can know what kind of device are they on. Are they on a mobile phone? Are they on a desktop? What time of day and day of week is it? That may speak some to their mindset, right? In a pre or post-COVID world, like, are they in the office or are they at home? Or in a COVID world, like, what, are they thinking about work? You can know, have they been here before? What have they done on my site before? Is this a first visit, repeat visit? Is this an existing customer? There are a bunch of things you can use to better personalize, and that gets amplified when they clicked on an ad or an email that you sent out to attract them, because you can know what targeting you used in that ad or email, right? You can know, oh, this ad was for the high value, tech SaaS prospects. This email was sent to the lower value SMB prospects, whatever it might be. You can know that through your UTM parameters. Jeff also asked, hey, how do I take a North American page and personalize it for other parts of the world like EMEA and APAC? Is it better to start from scratch or copy what happened in the US? In my humble opinion, the answer is it depends. We find most of our customers, they'll take the US page, they'll translate it, and then they'll get local people to say, hey, you know what, this is just not how we talk here, or this concept isn't relevant here, or we haven't focused on this brand message here, and tailor it from there, building off of what was done in the US. But we don't find any customers, I'm going to be extreme, take the US page, run it through Google Translate and put it up on a European site or an Asian site, right? It definitely takes more investment to help go personalize. So thank you, Jeff and Quentin, for the questions. Renee, I think you had one you were
Yes, I did. So the next question is, are photos better to use in order to bring attention to visitors versus using text? Well, I would love to be able to give you a universal answer to this, but it really depends on the visitor. And the best way to understand what works best is to truly run tests and provide dynamic delivery to your visitors to determine which one resonates best with that individual. There's a lot that goes into determining what to serve up and what might be best for that individual. It could be based on, what device they're using. It could be based on the offer. So my advice there would be to run tests to make that determination. Because I could answer, text works best for me, and the person next to me might say that photos resonate more. So that's my recommendation.
And I will add to what Renee's saying is that, remember, your imagery is such a huge part of the attract phase, but it also is your reputation and your brand. And so what you're trying to do with any of your imagery is to ensure that it's very appealing. It is helping to build trust of the brand of who you are and what you'd like to project and what you're offering. So you want to really balance that out. So it's to Renee's point, you do need to test to see between the two when you're driving engagement and actions, but your imagery does play such a huge piece to your visuals and establishing credibility and trust of your brand in the marketplace.
Great answers. They resonate a bunch. Next question. How does predictive lead scoring work? So we've seen a couple of ways it works. One is with rules, where you simply say, hey, look, I care about folks that have revenue above X or employee count above Y or are in a certain industry or geography. That's one way to do lead scoring. Another way, where the word predictive typically comes in, is you either have in-house or at a vendor a really smart, highly paid data scientist who will then run correlations. They'll say, hey, give me a big pile of data. Give me data about all the customers you've acquired to date, and tell me about them. What I'm going to go do is figure out, hey, if they have these attributes, maybe it is revenue, maybe it is industry, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's, they're actively hiring on LinkedIn. Whatever data you have, they're going to say, oh, hey, the people who have these attributes, they tend to become customers based on the customers you've already acquired. So they'll take that big pile of data, they'll train a model, and then you'll use that model to go find or score additional leads, saying, hey, do they look like the folks we attracted before? That's often how we see it working. Renee, anything else you want to share on that topic?
Yeah, I think you answered it perfectly. And I think there is one other question that we should answer before we wrap up. If we look at, hold on here. The question around A/B testing. I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud. Is your platform capable to support personalization or primarily A/B testing? I see that using an A/B testing platform for personalization causes an issue in the long term, as personalization is always on versus A/B testing which is in use to learn and move on. So Guy, I think this one is more directed towards Intellimize, so I'll let you take that one.
Happy to share. I'll answer for Intellimize specifically. The answer is yes. You can run a straight A/B test. You can do personalization. But let me take a meta level up from there. I recognize that testing and personalization are typically two different teams, two different budgets, two different strategies. And in my humble opinion, it's not how it should be. Why? Because I think you can personalize for each unique visitor and learn at the same time. And that you should, in fact, that if you are personalizing for each unique visitor and you're looking across all the results, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can get insights that you can use in your email, in your ads, in your future website content, right? The A/B testing style results, and make more money because you're not treating everyone the same. You are personalizing. And so the best we've seen out there are folks that are continually trying new set of ideas based on what they've learned from their previous tests and are using those to personalize to each visitor in the moment. So I hope that's helpful. If you'd like to dig in further on this or other questions, you've got our 3 Twitter handles there. We'd very much enjoy connecting with you. I want to thank you, Rainey and Renee, for a most enjoyable session. Forrester's web conversion optimization framework is powerful and guiding as each one of us thinks about maximizing the impact of the traffic we all worked so hard to get to our websites. We hope that you, the audience, found this useful and actionable. And again, if you have follow-up questions, please connect with us at the Twitter handles below.
Thanks so much, Guy. And thank you everyone for joining. I've had a lot of fun answering some of your questions in the Q&A text window, and I see many familiar faces. And I say that lovingly because I can just see your initials as you have joined and we're on this webcast, but we are in fact live. So it was really great to have you all on. And it's one of mine and Renee's passionate topics. So we absolutely love discussing how to improve your websites.
Yes, I echo Guy and Rainey. Thank you all for attending as well as your engagement. You've asked so many questions. I wish we could stay on another half an hour and answer all of them. And we really do enjoy sharing our knowledge and passion surrounding web conversion optimization and appreciate your time today. Happy web converting.